I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome. Today is March 8th, and roll call please.
Meyer. Here. Whaling.
Here.
Caprows.
Here.
Kraus.
Here.
Missouri. Here. Possession.
Here. Do we have the minutes from February 8th? Are there any changes? If not, is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second? Any questions? Roll call.
Meyer. Yes. Whaling.
Yes.
Caprows.
Yes.
Kraus.
Yes.
Missouri. Yeah. Possession. Yes.
Is the clerk's report?
Total tax income received in the month of February is $108,674.72. I again wanted to remind people the deadline for dog tags is Monday, March 15th. After the 15th, dog tag prices increase to $15 per tag. I also have a letter here from the U.S. Census Bureau. We actually got two letters from them. They were identical. Addressed, Dear Trusted 2020 Census Partner, thank you for your valuable partnership during the decennial census. With your support, the region exceeded the national self-response rate of 67% and had the highest self-response rate among all regions of 69.8%. All of our social media paid off. In collaboration with more than 50,550 partners that collectively held nearly 64,750 events and made more than 70,450 commitments, you exhibited enormous dedication, creativity, and support in developing outreach and marketing activities that engaged, educated, and encouraged households to complete the 2020 census, particularly in historically underserved communities. Working alongside more than the 2015 complete count committees, you and your many valuable partners hosted thousands of recruiting events to hire census workers that spoke the languages, understood the cultures, and lived within the communities they were tasked to count. Your efforts also ensured a successful mobile questionnaire assistance program across our region. Together we ensured the census had the most up-to-date address file, delivered paper questionnaires to rural areas, recruited workers during one of the lowest periods of unemployment, took on a global pandemic through unique virtual engagement, and engaged communities through Get the Count Out efforts that brought census staff to historically undercounted neighborhoods. Your valuable contributions will ensure critical planning over the next decade, signed Marilyn Sanders, the Chicago Regional Director. And we got a nice little colorful certificate, so that's all I have.
Thank you. Under my report on COVID, vaccines, more vaccines, less vaccines, more vaccines. Just a couple of things. Is number one, about 3 weeks ago now, between us, Moline, Peatone, and Crete, we were, Will County Health Department was reaching out to us looking for locations to have a southeast vaccination site. All of us submitted some type of recommendation. Some were not suitable. Some are maybes. The maybes are not in Beecher. The two maybes are the Atrium and or vacant grocery store on Exchange and University Park. That's as far as I know of, but we made several recommendations, and then somehow we were notified last week that one was going to be announced soon, but yet it's already late, so I don't know what's going on there. And just a reminder that you do not have to sit and wait for Will County to contact you. Anywhere and everywhere that will take your registration, including any one of the businesses as far as Walgreens, Myers, Walmart, wherever they're offering the vaccines, if they will let you, you can sign up there. You can sign up 5 times. And then bottom line is if one of your other ones contact you, you just decline it. So you don't have to sit and wait. So hopefully now with the Johnson & Johnson being approved, as time goes on, it's going to get easier and easier and easier. I know of one person that basically, I know several people that right after I was able to get an appointment within that very same week, others were able to get an appointment that very same week as well. So it's loosening up. Be patient, and like I said, sign up everywhere and anywhere where you can get the shots. that, I think we're going to do a presentation first with Robinson Engineering, if you don't mind, John?
Mercy's?
Yes, yeah, but your finance next, so I'm just.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Right, Bob?
Yes, Marcy.
Consider a motion awarding a bid for the replacement of lead service lines pending approval of a grant agreement with the IEPA. 3 bids were received and opened and were as follows. Grant excavating, $2,777,865. Calumet City Plumbing, $4,155,465. M&J Underground, $3,186,000. The project is 100% funded by IEPA with the exception of the meter installation portion of the project, which is funded by a 20-year IEPA loan at 1.2%. But there's a discrepancy on how the bids were made out related to the meter portion of the bid, and the engineer, Jonathan Flowers from Robinson Engineering, is going to explain this and the options the village has to minimize the local funding portion. There's a 120-day clock on the bids to allow the IEPA and the village time to complete the grant agreement.
That is correct. The low bid of Brandt Excavating included a $325,000 price tag for the installation of the 215 meters in the project. And we thought that was pretty excessive. Also, the other bidders had a substantial portion put into the meter portion of the project. So I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan Flowers from Robinson to explain the project to those that are new to the project, and then also explain the bids and how the options we have maybe to correct this discrepancy in the local match. So, Jonathan?
Sure. Okay, so I'm going to walk up here. Nice to meet you all. This is the whole project area. There are about 700 homes in the area. Of these, we did a spot check of 16 homes. 9 of them came back lead. So we used that to project onto the 700 homes that there's about 380 lead services in town. So that was our quantity in the bid. The yellow homes that are highlighted here are homes that are in need of water meter replacement. There are 211 homes that need water meter replacement. So that's where we got the quantity there. All of the homes for water meter replacement are in the project area for lead service line replacement. We combined the 2 projects with the bid with the idea that it would be more efficient. You'd only contact the residents once and you get better prices because you have one contractor doing both the service replacement and the meter replacement. They have all the resources on site to get the job done. We got the bids. The meter portion was high for the low 2 bids. It was about at the engineer's estimate for the highest bid. What I think ended up happening was there was some variability as to where the lead services are, and the contractors were responsible for finding the lead services, and we did that because it's a lot easier to use the IEPA and their funding source to find the lead services than to have Beecher go out and do it themselves, or to have a consultant go out and do it. So that was the logic behind that. Based on the variability, the contractors put a little bit more money into the meter side because they knew that there was going to be 211 meter replacements. That wasn't a variable number. As I said, the spot checks determined the 380. Those weren't checked in every single home. So based on the bids that came out, as the loan is structured and as the report that you guys eloquently stated, the payback for the village is associated with the meters. So we had an estimate. That estimate was $200,000. The winning bid was $330,000. And that seems like more than what the village is willing to spend for the meters. There was some discussions prior to this that the village could possibly perform the meter work on their own and have the contractor do the lead service replacement work. I think that's a suitable idea. I think based on the bids that we received, that our best option moving forward is to rebid. We can structure the bids such that the contractor has more certainty on the lead service line replacement portion of the job, and they can put more money on that portion rather than relying on the meters to make their profit or to make their guaranteed money. We have that as an option. I think that's the best option. The EPA has acknowledged that we can rebid the project within the time frame, within the funding time frame. And the forgiveness funding for the lead service line replacement will still be there. The loan funding for the meters will still be there. So that would be my recommendation to the board. We would rebid, the bid would be opened on about April 20th, and then we would approve theoretically the winning bid on April 26th. So it's about a month and a half delay in the project. Bob brought up an excellent point earlier that as more vaccines come out, it is likely that residents will be a little bit more receptive to having people in their homes. So I don't think it's the worst thing to, I guess there's one positive to moving the project back a little bit. Once the bids get open, it will be about 3 to 4 months before the project starts, because the loan agreement has to come through. The contractor has to get their bonding and insurance, and then they have to mobilize and get started. So the rebid is my preference. There are other options here. We could move forward with the bids as is, with Frank Construction being the lowest bidder. And then we could do some value engineering on the back end of the project once it's awarded. The village could purchase the meters. That would reduce some cost. The village could investigate where some of the missing V-boxes are, or they could eliminate some pay items in that regard to minimize cost. So that's an option. And then the third option that we had discussed was to possibly just remove the meters from the project and look at the bids in that regard. We have had some conversations with contractors, and Calumet City Plumbing and M&J are willing to hold to their prices if we were to remove the meters from the project. Brant was not. Brant was a little bidder, the winning bidder. So there is debate there on what to do, and I think we would have to make sure everyone's on board if we were to move forward without the meters, and maybe approach M&J and say, you're $150,000 more on the lead side, so can you just do the lead and then have the village employees or staff finish with the meters? That, again, would not be my recommendation. My recommendation would be to rebid and to hopefully get lower bids, package everything together again. You have the meters and the lead service lines performed by the contractor. I would think we would get lower prices on the meter side this time. I'm aware of why they did the project the way they did, and I think we could get more of what the village is looking for out of this.
I have a couple of questions, John. If we rebid the job, how much does that cost to rebid? I'm sure there's an additional fee you'd have to charge to rebid, correct?
Yes.
Do you have any idea what that number would be?
$7,000.
$7,000 rebid, but the EPA is gonna reimburse us for that. So if we agree to rebidding, we have to come up with the $7,000, but then we'll get it back, correct?
Yes, and I think we're far enough along in the project where we could wait for the loan agreement to come in before we design fee.
Okay.
With the permission, if you wanna call it that, from the EPA to rebid, is that in writing?
It's an email.
We have something in writing that says there's no repercussion for us rebidding as long as we're within the time frame.
Yes.
So, I got a question. Did you say Cal City Plumbing and M&J were willing to hold their prices?
For the lead service line portion, yes, if we remove the meters.
What does that equate to? What are the prices for each of those?
M&J was $150,000 more on the lead services than Brant. Brant was at,
But Brant's not willing to hold that number.
correct. So M&J is at $2.6 million for just lead service line replacement. Calumet City Plumbing was at about $4 million.
Was that like 4 million?
Yeah.
But Brant was not willing to stick to their you said they were 325.
So when they did these bids, you had mentioned that you allowed them to go out and figure out how many lead homes there were. So how were you able to get bids to line up if one's bidding 250 lead homes and the other one's bidding?
So
Can't we go out and tell them that you know that there's 380 lead homes to bid that?
The bids were all based on 380 lead homes.
Okay.
So I think I can kind of explain this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, please. But, so the bid is based on 380 lead service lines, okay? But as Jonathan stated, they have to do exploratory, okay? And so the number was the same, but I think where he was saying, so everybody understands why the contractor kind of went heavy on the meter side, was because they know that no matter what, there's 211 meters to install.
Right.
So if we say there's 380 lead service lines, you gotta do exploratory on them, but you only replace 250, you're gonna get less on that end, right?
Right.
Because it's a line item per unit, correct?
Correct.
So they went heavy on the one side. So I happened to be in here Friday to approve bills. And Jonathan just happened to call Bob, so Bob called me into his office and kind of started explaining this. And that was one of the things I was curious. So if you take Brandt's number of the 325 and you subtract it from their 2.77, they're at 2,452,000, right? On the lead service, M&J was at 2.6 and Cal City was 4.0. But Brandt said no. So, because when I heard the amount that was involved at 325,000, I had numbers in my head. I think Bob had kind of referenced it, but it was because we had it broken up into how many? 4?
4 phases.
4 phases, where I had just remembered hearing 60,000 in my head. But when I did the math, Bob, what would 211 meters, 215 meters cost the village? Our cost?
$285 for materials, $285, that's your question? What the
Yes.
material costs
So
are?
that comes to,
60,000.
huh?
60,000.
Okay, so we would have 60,000. I said, at that point, I said, why would we have a contractor do that? We can purchase it for 60,000. We could literally have 2 of our public works employees follow this project around. So there is still the single visit, which was the thought on having the contractor do the water meters. We could literally have 2 guys sitting in a truck for the length of this project following them around. And even if you figure an entire year's salary, plus the $60,000, we're way under the 325,000. We're talking probably 6 digits savings to the village, for the village just to take this on and do the water meter. I said at that point, you could literally pay for two men for an entire year, which the project's not gonna be an entire year. You could have their salaries covered for an entire year, purchase all the meters, and probably get the public works department 3 or 4 part-time people to help out with the summer, because you're gonna have your 2 main water meter guys, which I believe would be Larry Nick, kind of following this project along and going with it, and still see significant savings, still cover the streets and the manpower with whatever we would need to do, part-time help, and still see significant savings. Now, my question is by removing it equally, the same portion from all 3 bids, with one of them saying they're out, they're not gonna hold to that price, could we still go with the lowest bid of the 2 remaining?
That's a good question. I would say yes, but I would say the village attorney would be responsible for making that final.
But would that still be the remaining low bid if we don't know what number they're gonna hold to? Because if we remove the meters, they're not gonna hold to that other,
No, that's what he said. He said Cal City Plumbing.
but I mean, Brand won't.
Brant won't,
So
so
they won't-
you eliminate them from the bid. They don't have a bid that they're willing to hold to. I mean, any contractor could put in a bid, right? And you could say, your low bid, you're awarded, and they could go, I'm out. I'm not interested. I misbid this or whatever. You can't hold them to a bid.
Yeah, I'm saying, so if we take the meters out, we're basically taking Brand Excavating out.
Grant Excavating,
Is that,
yeah.
Yeah.
sums it
So
up?
the next lowest bid.
Yeah.
Okay,
So you would move to the next lowest bid out of, which would be M&J at 2.6.
and we want the meters out because we're covering that cost. The EPA is eating the lead service
EPA
line.
is covering that 100%,
The lead service.
the lead service line.
So we want the savings at the meters for us.
Yeah, because that's our portion of it. That's what we're responsible for. Now, we would have to, my next question is, if the village attorney were to say, this is prudent, you removed, you basically had bids from 3 contractors with section A for lead service lines, part B, basically like an addition, right? For the water service line, you remove it equally from all 3. And the village attorney says, yes, that's a go. And we say, hypothetically, we were to go with the next lowest bid, which would be M&J at 2.6 million. Would we be able to submit payroll and material receipts for the loan?
No.
Okay, so we would have to come up with that out of pocket or do our own funding source, but at that point, salaries are salaries, right?
Right, your direct out of pocket will be whatever part-timers you hire to replace your full-time men, and the cost of meters, which is 60 grand.
Which
That's
we,
your out of pocket, which you agreed to already to pay.
and we have that, we could cover that, correct? I mean, we would have to do some reworking of the budget now.
No, because I think the water main replacement account was set up for this already.
Okay,
For 60, not 3 1/4. That's when I had a heart attack,
yeah,
you know?
Because my concern with sending it out for a bid again is suppose it doesn't come back that much different.
well,
Then you're kinda,
and here's the other thing, Jonathan, I thought you told us on the phone that typically when you go out to rebid, because I asked this question, or Bob asked this question,
Yes.
and you said typically when you go back out to rebid, the bids typically come in more.
Yes, that's been my experience.
But you just told us 5 minutes ago that you thought it would come in less. But on the phone Friday, you said you thought it would come in more.
Yes, my experience has been in the bids that I've rebid, they have come in more. In this particular situation, what I failed to realize is that if we advertise again, I think it's much more likely that we have more than 3 bidders. And now the price is out there.
What do you think would be different this time versus the last time? Why didn't we get more than just 3 bidders this time? Why would we get more than 3 next time? Are you planning on advertising it differently, different sources?
So the IEPA funding cycle has more or less just started with the lead service line replacements. There was a big influx of money, $104 million. When that money came in, everyone rushed to get the designs done. Beecher was one of the first to get done. After that, there were other designs that were completed. We now have, since Beecher went out to bid, we put 2 other projects out to bid as well. On those 2 other projects, we've seen contractors become more aware of what's going on in these projects. So in Beecher's situation, I think we would benefit from the fact that this is now on the street and there is word of mouth that lead service lines are being bid and more contractors getting interested in it.
Were those other 2 contracts similar to ours, or?
Yes.
Location?
Within 30 miles, 20 miles.
Are we talking like double the amount of people? Are we talking like maybe 1 more? I mean, because if we redid this, what's the timeline now, the way it's set up, and what would the timeline be if we redid? Like the start?
You lose 6 weeks.
You lose.
So, my other part of this too, right, is were approved based on, through the IEPA for the 100% funding, up to 4 million, correct?
Correct.
We're coming in at 2.6. The IEPA is funding this 100%. The village's end of things, right? If somebody, say we were to do it, and somebody were to come in $150,000 below, or $250,000 below, or $250,000 ahead, as far as the village's financial responsibility for that project, changes zero, correct?
The only responsibility that the village has is to pay for the meters.
And I think even at that, with the water meters, I mean, now that we think a little more in depth about it, I mean, are we interested in paying a contractor to do that, or covering it with our own men? What's the sentiment of the board?
What are we talking, like, what's a guesstimate for salaries for 2 people per project?
And John, I do want to interject that the project timeframe, the construction schedule is 500 days. So it's possible that they'll be on and off for 500 days.
It's a 2-year project.
Yeah, so it's not gonna be constant.
Right.
So,
You're not gonna lose a whole year on
So we don't
salaries.
even need 2 public works people year round, we just need them when the.
Well,
when the project's there, I mean,
put this into perspective, we put 100 meters into the system every year right now. We're doing it already. Now, we're gonna have to at least do 150. If they do 100 in town, we'll set 50 in the other part of town that we'll have to replace because they go out. But, Matt, I'm not speaking for you now, but if we decide to do this in-house and we give you an extra part-timer or 2, can you handle this for 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, but like what Jonathan's saying with the in and out, it's hard to have a part-timer here if we only have 1,000 hours, and how do we dictate when that person's here, because it's up to who at that point to schedule these appointments. I think having part-timers here is a good idea. I agree with what you guys are saying as far as not spending $325,000 on meter replacement. That to me doesn't make any sense. Can we handle it? Yeah. I think it might be difficult getting part-timers in here to take their places if we're on a rotation, if it's not set Monday through Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whatever the case may be.
I mean,
let me ask you another question, Matt.
Yeah.
Because, to me, so you're talking possibility of, what you said, 500 days for the entire project. But you're talking 200 and something meters, so you're talking literally 1 meter every 2 days. I mean, and I'm going in the opposite end of favorability here, 1 meter every 2 days. It's actually 1 meter every 2-point-something days.
Right.
How long does it take us to do a meter?
45 minutes.
So, I mean, is it the end of the world that we
No, the biggest part of this project, and Donna can attest to this, is getting into these people's houses
Oh my God,
to actually
yes.
do the meter appointment.
Yeah.
It's
So, I mean, we
at
can
times it's
even-
like pulling teeth. We've
Yeah.
literally put we're shutting your water off. If you don't call us by X date, we are shutting your water off, because there is a village ordinance that says that you have to allow the utility in to perform our work as well. And a lot of people don't see it that way, because it's not like, Nycor or ComEd where they're outside of your house. These people have to take a day off work. They have to, there's a lot of coordinating to get this done. So
With this going on, they're gonna lose their water anyway, right?
potentially though, that's the thing. That's why this portion of the program is guaranteed. It doesn't matter if they have a lead line in their system or not. This meter is being replaced.
Right.
So
But what Matt is saying is the contractor does all the coordinating. We
Yep.
just have to show up to do the install when they're punching the
Right.
whole line
Right.
through the
Right.
foundation.
yeah,
That's the key, and we're out of making the appointment. Contractor's gonna tell us, be here 10 o'clock.
right.
but still, I mean, how many of these do we anticipate them doing a day?
The 500 is based on 1.5, so there'll be 2 someday, 1 other days.
So I mean,
I mean, it's
Hour and a half, you're done,
yeah.
and you're out of there,
Right.
so.
so I guess my question is, and to you, is if we table this, which, I mean, I hate having to do an attorney when we're paying an engineering firm, $400,000 for a project, to get a
That's why I didn't call the attorney.
to get an opinion from our attorney as to what we can or can't do. I guess if we call our attorney, can we table this and add it onto the agenda for the budget workshop meeting? And if the attorney says, look, you removed the, to me, the biggest thing when we get into bids, it's you can't compare apples and oranges, right? But we are comparing apples and apples. We have apples over here, oranges over here. All we're looking to do is remove the oranges. We're not looking to
I think
remove.
we would need a statement from Brandt in writing that they are withdrawing their bid because we removed the meter requirement. That's what I would think would be comfortable. They'd have to formally withdraw their bid in writing.
Okay.
So we have to give them a letter stating, we are removing the meters. Is your bid still good? And they have to respond in writing, so no, we withdraw, then you go to the second.
And yeah, I mean, and as
Correct.
long as it's not at the 4 million, because that's all we're approved up to, because then that doesn't cover the engineering bills and everything else. I mean, that's out of the ballpark anyway. You can't, at Cal City Plumbing's number, it's not feasible. You can't do it because it won't qualify. We are only approved for up to 4 million, they're at 4 million, but you got 4 million plus engineering costs. So I guess, yeah, I mean, let's get it in, ask to put it in writing from, I guess it would be from Brandt, that they are not willing to keep their bid, and put it in writing that M&J, yes, they are willing to maintain their bid.
In its entirety.
And then ask the attorney if this is susceptible, and I got confidence in our department that we can pull this off. I mean, both Brandt and M&J have done work in the village all the time. Brandt has been the last 2 or 3 projects, they've been a little bit in done.
Quite a few, yeah.
And M&J is basically our on-call emergency contractor, where anytime it's something that Public Works can't handle, M&J is who gets, so we have 2 quality contractors who both worked for the village before. We have no issues with it, and you work well enough with them that you think you could, either one, you'd be able to have a good enough relationship and work well enough with them to coordinate this and be able to do it if we remove the water meters and do it in-house.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Do I need to make a motion to table it?
Yeah, let's do that.
Make a motion to table, this until the budget workshop on March 22nd.
March 22nd.
I would table the motion and have the meter portion of the project removed from the bid.
Okay,
That way we're on record as that's what we want to do.
okay.
And then which meeting is it, March 22nd meeting?
It'll be at the budget workshop at the Public Works Garage. That's a regular meeting.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second, any questions? Everybody understand what we're doing? Okay, roll call.
Can Bob clarify the
The
motion?
motion is to table the bids and to direct the engineer to instruct the contractors to remove the meter installation portion of their bid or withdraw their bid, basically.
Yeah.
And we'll get that in writing.
Either you remove it and stay with your number, or you withdraw.
Does that make sense, Jonathan,
Yes.
that motion? Okay.
Both of you agree?
Yeah.
Roll call.
Possession?
Yes.
Missouri?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
Caprows?
Yes.
Whalen?
Yes.
Meyer?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. What we'll do is get your written opinions from each of the contractors. When we get that, then you and I will call the engineer, or the attorney. We'll do a conference call and get a decision within 2 weeks.
Okay.
All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you, have a safe drive home, a long way.
Finance and administration.
All right, consider a motion approving the treasurer's report and all treasurer transactions for the previous month. Ms. Rooney?
All right. The February month-end total for the village accounts, $2,313,783.11. The month-end for the commission and special accounts, $149,600.35. The total of both together, $2,463,383.46. The February month end for general, $707,182.94. The February commission non-AP payments, $253,463.66. And if there's no questions, that ends my report.
Alright. I will go ahead and make a motion approving the treasurer's report for the preceding month.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second, any questions? Roll call.
Meyer,
Yes.
Whaling,
Yes.
Caprows,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
Missouri,
yes,
Possession,
Yes.
Variance reports for the month are enclosed for your review. Consider a motion for the approval of bills. We did have a few additions. Aaron's Alarm, $240. Cargill, road salt, $6,027.43. Constellation Energy, $1,022.84, which was well 3. And Booster Station, well 4, Constellation Energy, $1,032.10. Constellation Energy, Colonel Creek Lift Station, $239.59. Locust, $700. Martin Whalen, $91.52. Motorola for 12 radios, $408. Napa, $134.22. And that's it. Before I approve these real quick, Bob, did we get receipts for police petty cash?
Yes, but they're not in the format that was acceptable, so we'll do that next month.
So we're
We're
removing
gonna
the
defer for a
200?
Yeah, we don't have the actual receipts, we have a list of receipts, but they weren't the dates that they were used. And in my opinion, since he hasn't asked for petty cash in 8 months, there's probably an 8-month span of where that petty cash was used, not just the month of March, or the March of February. So he needs to do a little bit of work, and we'll bring that bill to you next month.
Okay, so we'll remove the 200.
I don't think it's on here, is it?
Yeah, it's on there.
Yep.
Oh, remove it.
So removing the 200 police petty cash would give us a new total of $101,052.62.
And what we're gonna do to standardize the petty cash is Jeanette's gonna share the sheet, her Excel spreadsheet we use for it. They're just both gonna use the same.
There you go. Make it easy.
Yep.
Perfect. All right, I will go ahead and make a motion approving the bills in the amount of $101,052.62.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second, any questions?
The attorney for Fieldgate, is that our first bill from them?
No.
Where are we at right now with that?
Probably spent about $8,000 total. We budgeted 23, but it's gone real slow. The pandemic has really slowed the judicial process down on civil cases. But it's still dragging on, and we're gonna budget some money for next year again.
And the Motorola, that's the same bill, twice, that's supposed to be that?
Well, the finance chair approved the $408 on Friday. This month's bill came in today. So
Okay.
you're paying 2 months worth, basically.
Okay.
The Motorola.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Possession,
Yes.
Missouri,
yes,
Kraus,
Yes.
Caprows,
Yes.
Whaling,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Committee workshop on the draft budget, took place this Saturday. Budget's now being prepared for the village board workshop, which will occur Monday, March 22nd, 7 PM at the Public Works Facility, 30200 Cardinal Creek Boulevard. This workshop is in lieu of our regularly scheduled meeting for the same date and time.
Since we separate ourselves 10 feet apart, masks are optional.
Okay.
And that allows, because those workshops, there's a lot of discussion, and we want people to be comfortable during the budget, just like we did last year. We went out that big arena and we stayed way far apart.
Do we need to change, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's at 7?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
Now, what's unique with this is the finance committee met Saturday morning for like 6 hours and balanced the budget. So you're gonna see a balanced document, which makes your lives a lot easier. We still have to go through it and review it, but we don't have to do those nasty cuts that we always have to work on as a board. The finance committee did some dirty work for you.
Since it says it's in lieu of our regular meeting, if we're gonna have items to bring up, or an item to bring up, do we need to change that, or can we just leave it?
It's regular meeting, I'll make it a 2-item agenda, that's the bids and the budget workshop. I don't know what else we need to do at this point.
Well, we have some time to do business, but that's fine.
Then just let me know,
Okay.
yeah?
As long as there's no motion, you can discuss.
There needs to be a motion, let me know, and I'll throw it on the agenda, but I didn't plan on doing committee reports or anything like that. The purpose of that meeting is to do the budget.
But anything that, as any other regular meeting, anything that, you know, as long as it's
Let us
added
know
to
by
the
Thursday.
agenda within 48 hours, we can act on business on it. Consider a motion for a donation of $15,000 to the Beecher 4th of July Commission for the first installment of the 2020 fireworks show, which was canceled in 2020 and to be rescheduled for 2021. If you recall, the 4th of July Commission had to pay $15,000 in exchange for not holding the show in 2020, but Melrose agreed to allow their clients to use the cancellation fees as down payments for next year's show. We did apply for that in the CARES Act. That was one of our items that we all approved. So the commission, this would basically just clean it up. It's what we applied for, that's what we said we were gonna spend it on. It just in turn puts it over to them. The commission has $22,000 on account. If they don't, they pay the 15, which would put them down to 7,000. If we do this, question is, does the commission think that they're gonna need a loan for the vehicle again?
Or then we
Well, first of all-
then we front load the alcohol payment last year too, or
Yeah,
what?
we have a standing ordinance now that you give them a $50,000 line of credit. We don't know what's gonna happen in 21. There's a meeting tomorrow night. There's a lot of discussion. There's no consensus yet on whether or not they're even gonna buy a car for the raffle, because we're in very uncertain times. So I don't know what's gonna happen in 21. I'm gonna tell you, there's gonna be a fireworks show, that I can guarantee you. I don't know what they're gonna do.
We'll move picnic tables onto the
Yeah,
park,
that's
the open area.
And it may not be on the 4th of July. The fireworks or the festival, if there is a festival, may not be on the 4th of July. It might be pushed back. Because we just don't know where we're gonna be. You know?
That's a decision
Yep.
for the commission.
Yep.
So I'll go ahead and make a motion, for a donation of $15,000 to the Beecher 4th of July Commission.
Second.
Motion made, and there's a second. Any questions? Roll call.
Meyer,
Yes.
Whaling,
Yes.
Caprows.
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
Missouri,
yes,
Musician,
Yes.
Just that roll, you know.
Yeah, the delay.
Yeah.
Rick, yes, it's
Yeah.
exactly what's
Yeah.
happening around there.
Request for closed session to discuss a tentative collective bargaining agreement with UIOE Local 399 Clerical. Contract expires on April 30th. New agreement has been under discussion since the 120-day notice period was given. If the board concurs with the TA, we can go back into open session and vote on the ordinance.
You can do it at the end, right?
Yes, we'll do that at the end, correct. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Public Buildings and Properties, Parks and Recreation Committee, trustee Wheeler.
Yeah, splash pad update, the village has been given a loan offer for 1.8% for 10 years on $175,000 from First Community Bank and Trust for this project, which requires an annual payment of $19,075 from the general fund. We're in the process right now of obtaining new pricing and specs and everything else, and I have to work with Bob, because this dollar amount goes, it exceeds, you have to go out for bid with this, correct?
It's gonna happen, Scott.
What's that?
It's read by lips.
It's gonna happen,
So let's
it's gonna happen,
let's get these new bid specs and let's get a bid process done.
okay.
Need his mask.
So, real quick, because and then there's some stuff that we'll discuss on the 22nd. Is there a time frame on this interest rate with First Community?
We got a quote last week, because
Yeah,
we needed to know where we stood. You know,
But
what
rates
the
could
payments
be-
would be for the budget.
Rates could be changing here
We
shortly.
certainly could.
Is there any
Yeah.
sort of guarantee on this for so long? Do you need to do anything ahead? Is this something that maybe we can look into and kind
I'll
of
look
maybe
into
have
it.
an answer for us on the 22nd?
Yeah, we'll look again.
See
Yeah,
how long
see how
that's-
long you can lock
that
it.
rate, yes,
you know,
that rate's
lock it.
guaranteed. Cause it would be annual payment?
Yeah,
What is the annual payment? $19,075 on the current rate that was
We're
quoted.
confident this project is happening. So even if you had to close on the loan to guarantee the rate a month or so early before,
I would say that by the 1st of April, we'll have a pretty good idea whether or not we're gonna do this project,
okay,
yeah.
and not even get a loan.
okay,
Yeah,
alright,
but that's a board decision at that time.
yep, we'll discuss it on the 22nd.
All right, then that's my report.
Thank you. Planning, Building, and Zoning Committee, trustee Missouri.
Thank you. Looks like the Planning and Zoning Commission is going to hold a meeting on March 25th to consider a variance for a fence and front yard setback at $300 a post. We'll get the agenda soon. That is pretty much all I have.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee did not have a report. Public Works Committee, trustee Meyer.
Item number 2, consider a 4-year maintenance agreement with Concentric Integration LLC in the amount of $9,065 per year for servicing and updating the computerized mechanization of the Beecher wastewater treatment plant. Our 1-year warranty on the SCADA system is about to expire, and this agreement will pay for all software updates and upgrades, licensing, servicing, training, security, and remote repairs with the exception of hardware. The entire sewer plant and lift stations utilize the system for daily operation and high flow warning and accommodation. These systems can be expensive to repair, especially if updates are not loaded correctly or monitored. After this 4-year agreement is up on April 30th, 2025, Concentric recommends a complete overhaul of the system, including the replacement of all sensors and electronic metering. We'll work with them to get numbers for this to be included in the 5-year plan, but this agreement would give us 4 years of peace of mind. The sewer plant operator recommends the enclosed agreement be approved. Funding will come out of the sludge maintenance for this year, and we will skip budgeting for this next year. But we'll have to include it in the 22-23 budget cycle. And we had talked about this, do we have to go with the $9,000 a year servicing, or how much are we spending right now? You know, what would be just a time and materials price? And it's a little bit difficult, Bob said, to guesstimate, because since the system was new, we were using them a lot more in the beginning, but it's kind of dropping down to more of a dull roar. So we discussed, would it be okay to be able to just go with time and materials for now and kind of see how much we're spending? If it gets up over 9,000, if we're starting to spend that much money, then we may want to make the commitment to get into a contract.
Will this
But,
9,000 change next year? I mean,
well, what I had
It
suggested,
probably, go ahead.
yeah, is let's see how much it's gonna cost. If it's only gonna cost half of that for a year, there's no sense us getting into this. We can still use them on a monthly basis without pre-signing the contract for the $9,065.
Is that, I can't find it here, but I know I saw it when I looked in the email version. Was that the table that had all the cost? Like, it was like engineer 2, engineer 3, engineer 4?
That's for the, like, the time and material
But I'm
rates.
saying that's what you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay.
The one thing you know is, over the 4-year period, you're gonna have $11,000 just in software upgrades. So we're gonna pay that $11,000 regardless.
Right.
Just so you know that.
And that, would that be in addition to the 36?
No, that was in the 36. But if we go on a T&M, you're gonna have upgrades that are gonna total 11 grand over 4 years.
So the fixed price here includes various, like, preventive maintenance or backups and all that activity. So then, under that idea, we would ask them to come do that basically at the cost of their employees instead.
Yeah, most of the work they can do on these units are remote. They just dial in and they do their fixing that way, so you don't have a lot of travel expense unless they have to come out and replace something. But it takes time. These things are very touchy, and all it takes is one Windows update and the whole system crashes. and the computers can't afford to reboot, is when they reboot, they go to all the default settings. That's not good when you're running variable speed pumps and things like that, so it's a touchy system. Matt, I believe you would recommend we do a T&M and try it out, correct? Knowing that we have to pay $11,000 for software upgrades during the period anyway.
Correct, yeah.
That's what you're doing with Energetics?
Energetics, yeah, on our water side, we do it as we need it. There's, like Marcy or Trustee Meyer said, you know, there's no reason to spend the money if we don't need it. Let's figure it out for a year and see where we're at.
If it looks like we're starting to spend that money, if it looks like it's gonna go up higher than that amount, then we can just flip over to the contract, because right now, we don't really know
Right.
what we're gonna be spending on it yet.
I was also curious, so is this Concentric Integration the company that basically put this system in then? Because I know, I was looking at the rates, and I am somewhat familiar with like SCADA engineering type rates, and they seem pretty expensive for that type of business. So I didn't know if there's any other options, or if these guys are maybe wastewater treatment plant experts, or if it's just, they're just SCADA
Yeah,
engineers.
we decided, there was an opportunity to put both the water and sewer on the same system, and the decision was made to split the two utilities completely. So each utility has its own brain, let's put it that way. So Energetics does the water side, and Concentric does the sewer side. But I don't care which one you pick in this field, they're not cheap.
Oh,
You
sure.
pay a lot of money to Energetics too over the years for
Yeah.
upgrades and panels, and, you know, it's just, and when you have electrical storm, oh my gosh, open the wallet.
Yeah.
These things were just like, there's basically put it out, if we could put it out the bid.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because, you know, I mean, like, I've worked on the engineering side, and like the rates that CSO would pay sometimes seem lower than even these.
Concentric was put out to bid, I think, as part of the sewer plant project originally, correct?
Correct, yep. That was part of the EPA's overall plan for the
Yeah.
plant.
So their install was,
Mhm.
it's their equipment, you know, their install, and they would probably have to service it. I don't know if anyone else can go in there and do, because it's probably a trademark software, isn't it?
It is, yeah. If Energetics, if we were to say, okay, Energetics is gonna, they're already doing the water, let's bring them in on the sewer side now too, they would have to replace all of their equipment and things of that nature. So at the time being, for lack of better terms, we're kind of stuck with them.
You're kind of married
Is
to
what it
it.
is?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
A good question.
But since it's new, we don't really know what the actual cost is gonna be of this, you know, we'll have a better handle
In-
And this is
6
coming up now
months.
because our 1-year warranty is up, our 1-year.
In 5 years here, in this paragraph, it mentioned something about all the sensors and things like that were gonna need to be changed. That might be a good time to go out to bid and see if, you know, Energetics wants to come in, or, and, you know, anybody else for that sense to see what they could do differently.
Okay, so we don't need a motion on that at all. If you guys don't want to do the contract, you don't have to take any action.
Gould Street water main bid process is still on hold. The state still has not released the grant agreement because of the changing regulations pertaining to minority contracting passed by the General Assembly in the lame duck session. We're awaiting some interpretations from JCAR as to the specifications in the bid. We'll also have to have an RFQ process for the construction management engineer. We're being told any day now, but we've heard that before. We've reached out to the governor's office, and apparently their hands are tied as well. So it's not a fast track grant.
Democracy in action. I will say that we did have some positive movement on Friday. The mayor, Saturday morning at the workshop, signed the NOSA, which is not the grant agreement, but it's a notice of state award. And then today I went on the grant portal, the data portal, and I had to do a whole new series of internal control measures in there. So they're finally moving on getting this money released.
Was that based upon the email I sent you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So we're on top of it. As soon as they tell us what we gotta do, we do it right away. And then we wait for 30 days. So, it's just the way it is.
Dixie Highway Water Main Replacement Project. We've added one segment to the design at Indiana Avenue since there was more sandcast main in play at that intersection than we thought. We're prepared to solicit bids for this project, but cannot until we know what the bid results are for the Gould Street Water Main Project. In the event we need funds to cover any amount above our grant amount of $967,000. Everything hinges on Gould Street right now. That ends my report.
Economic Development and Community Relations Committee, trustee Youssef.
All right, so continued discussion on the spring newsletter. At the last meeting, it was agreed that the village would not sell ads and use CARES Act funds to cover the cost. Articles of interest included the new refuse contract extension and the impact on rates, the new water and sewer rates, a 4th of July update, and an article welcoming new businesses to the village in the last year. It was also decided that any new business that advertised in the last 2 newsletters would be offered a free ad, but the size of these ads have to be determined. Staff recommends a business card ad for each business, or the newsletter could get too large. If this is how the board wants to proceed, we need to begin development now, since the deadline for mailing is April 19th. Discussion of the future of the Sesquicentennial also has to occur. Glad I managed to get through that word.
How many times do you say that? They don't.
Right? I've been practicing all day. So I think there's that. There were a couple other items I wanted to just toss out there and see if you guys thought they might be of interest to the residents. Personally, I think it might be, it's hard to say, I mean, since we don't know for sure yet where that southeast Will County one will be, but I think it would be nice for people to have some sort of little contact info corner for vaccine scheduling, because I think a lot of people really don't know how to get their vaccine scheduled.
Absolutely.
You know, so that could be handy. I think the e-recycling that people can go to Peatown and do is useful, maybe a little reminder about it, if we want. And maybe kind of a public relations type thing. We have a lot of great employees that work for the village. I thought it might be cool to do some sort of spotlight type thing where maybe you could have like an interview or a presentation to kind of like say, hey, you know, this is so-and-so and they work in public works, and, you know, just kind of build some rapport with the community members. EMA, police, I mean, we got all sorts of options. Of course, we talked about the water rates, updates on the various big projects like the lead line, Dixie Highway, and Penfield. I know we talked about having a quiet zone update. And then the last kind of little thing I was thinking could be interesting, I think it'd be kind of neat to maybe get some community activities going, like maybe some sort of small contest, like maybe a Beecher photography contest where they could submit photos taken in town. You know, something little, but fun. Just see if, you know, maybe we get some people out there. I don't know, just spitballing.
Yeah.
Anything you guys think of?
Yeah, I like it.
Are you gonna do like, I remember in the past you did the bullet points with all the projects, is that what you're on the list and all those that were either have accomplished or are in the process, like you said, the lead lines, all that stuff? And it's, you know, with all this COVID, I mean, it's hard for people to.
Yeah, usually what will happen is the mayor has an article they put in all the time, and once Craig decides what he wants to write about, we kind of write around him. So if he picks vaccines, we'll do the rest. If he picks capital projects, we'll do vaccines, you know. But he gets first dibs at what he wants to write about.
I really like the idea on the employee thing, but I would suggest maybe, because we only do it twice a year, maybe you do it by department and you can just highlight each person within that department if it's just fun facts you didn't know or something like that, or just a thing or two about each
14
one.
years later.
Because none of our departments are that huge where
Yeah.
you could highlight, you know, and keep it to full-time employees.
And the other thing that Ben brought up too is the Sesquicentennial. Is that dead? Is that something that we're not going to address here on out?
Man, that's only every, what is it, 125 years?
150,
150 years? I mean,
Yeah.
it only happens once every 150 years. I mean, how do you
We
say
definitely
that's
will.
dead? I mean, you gotta figure out a way, right?
We won't have another chance.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. You got,
And we hope to make it another 50.
yeah, you got one shot.
Yeah, I mean, it was last year, you know. Of course, we couldn't do a thing other than the book. The book did come out. But
You always do the fireworks for that.
we budgeted
If you don't do the 4th, you know?
yeah, we budgeted the laser light show for
Oh,
$11
that's
grand, and then we cut it as part of a COVID cut.
Mhm.
But I think it's a valid question, what does the board want to do? And it's gonna take work and commitment, it's not something that, you know, you just throw money at it, it's gonna be some work.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, I guess the question is how, the bottom line is, whoever makes decisions still doesn't know what's going on. So I mean, how fast can we put something together, or how much, can we get a base? Like, hey, here's the base of what we wanna do, and then if it's a go, add on to it or something, I mean, get something started where you're not starting from scratch if we get the okay to do this.
There's a group of mayors that are trying to urge the governor's office to give us some guidance for stuff like that in the future. That conference call was supposed to take place tomorrow, it's been postponed because they're looking at a bunch of documents that everybody's submitting, including this group of mayors sent in. I may be able to give you more guidance, you know, by the next meeting, saying, okay, the governor thinks we're gonna open up or we're not gonna open up, you know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, I'd hate for them to do all the work and get canceled, but
Right.
I'd hate to also be like, oh yeah, hey, we can do it in 3 weeks, and now we'll just scramble and get it done.
Right, so I may be able to give you more information in the future.
I mean, I mean, my own personal gut is, I mean, I think we're gonna be okay to do some stuff come
Some
end of the
outdoor,
summer. Yeah.
The discussion that's happening amongst the mayors is they're not doing the big things anymore, they're doing a bunch of little things. So, I don't know whether about the Sesquicentennial, what you can do, but, I mean, that's what they're thinking right now. I'll give you one bigger example, Ravinia, whatever city that, or village that's in, that mayor in the discussion says Ravinia is planning on opening up July 1st. Now,
And I mean, anything Beecher does really considered that big?
Well-
Not a Ravinia,
not a Ravinia,
you
but,
know.
No, I mean, like,
right,
Scale-wise.
scale-wise, I mean, like, in,
it's all gonna depend upon what the governor,
I mean,
if we're gonna release us.
when you have like the beef roast and stuff like that, I mean, how many people at one time are actually truly there? You know, I mean, you're not talking,
in worst case scenario, they have to.
it's not talking Lollapalooza here, you know what I mean? It's the Beecher beef roast or something like that, you know what I mean? Like, I think we could pull something off.
I think we're beginning to see what we could end up with this summer, there's gonna be some hope for doing something, yes.
Cool.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I have a comment. I discussed it, Patty and I were kind of spitballing back and forth about the size of the ads. And we kind of come up with the recommendation that we go ahead and allow them to put in the size ad that they got before. Because some of them paid $750 for an ad, and it's, after talking about it for a while, it's like, you know, their investment, they really should get a free one of the size that they paid for, because they paid for.
Somebody
so
that paid
much.
for a half page, they should get a
Yeah,
half page,
Instead of a
not.
business card.
Yeah, we kind of
That sounds
rethought
fair.
that, so.
I mean, and what's our difference in cost? I mean, if it adds a couple extra pages to the thing, I mean, right, we eat it and
The
do it.
businesses are hurting, and they have been investing in our newsletter for years, especially the ones that did the bigger ads. There's actually 2 of them that they've only advertised twice, I think, or
I
once.
agree,
But
100%.
it's a lot of money.
Agree 100%.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so we're following the same size.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think I like on the Sesquicentennial as well. I mean, if, even, I know, right?
Hot shot.
Yeah, he's going for it.
Even if we end up
Rookie.
in an unusual situation, since we're already a year past, I mean, if we end up having to go into the fall, or worst case, into like summer next year or spring, you know, I don't think anybody would probably hold it against us.
Yeah.
So I
Start
think,
calling it the Sesqui plus 3.
yeah, we can make that a thing.
All right, nothing else, Ben?
Nothing else.
Okay, any old business? Any new business?
I have one thing, we have an interview tomorrow for a part-time police officer. So it's sort of like the board's consensus on this. If the interview goes well tomorrow, obviously they have to do same polygraph psych, all that stuff that every other officer has had to do. But if the board's okay with it, if that individual passes the interview and then passes all the tests they have to do anyways, does the board want me to bring it back for next month, or can we start the process to get them hired?
Do you have a name? Do you have the name tonight?
Yes.
Don't mention it, but do you have?
Yes.
Okay.
And this individual is fully certified, so they can hit the street quickly.
Todd, why don't you just request an executive session, go fill on the first one and just tell the name and get the approval of that one. So I would,
Okay.
subject to your committee's work.
I would request executive session and discuss the potential hire in the police department.
Okay, and would you like to add on to the, whoever, the executive session for discussing the,
Go ahead and make a motion to, go
go into executive session to consider an ordinance authorizing the village president and clerk to sign a collective bargaining agreement with UIOE Local 399 for clerical.
And you're.
And,
Discussion on a hire for part-time police.
thank you.
Okay, motion on the floor, and there was a second.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call.
We should have done it, didn't we're in oppositions going back and forth with this.
Possession,
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Missouri,
It's a new day.
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
Capros,
Yes.
Whaling,
Yes.
Meyer.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, and we're in executive session. Chief and Matt, Dave, if you'd like to